America's Got Talent Season 16 premieres next Tuesday, June 1st at 8 p.m. on NBC. And one of the judges joining us here on The Rich Eisen Show, also the host of the Howie Mandel Does Stuff podcast. New episodes air every Tuesday wherever you get your podcasts. The aforementioned Howie Mandel back here on the show. How are you, sir?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, if you want me to be honest, I'm not a professional. How am I? I could,
Yes.
if you want an honest answer,
Yes.
I could, but I got to call you back. I got to go get like a physical. I got to go talk to my therapist.
Yes.
I have to see how I measure up. I'll look at graphs and
Yes.
and then I'll answer. So that was a tough. You started with a very tough question.
Normally that's just, one that says, I'm fine. How are you? You know what I mean?
Because
But
people look for a lie. Do you really? Is everybody fine? We're in a world pandemic. There's a lot of crap going on.
Yes.
And we always say, and you don't really care. When people say, hey, how you doing? You don't want a real answer. Nobody wants a real answer. How am I doing? I'm chafed. Look at my thighs. Do you guys have an ointment? There's no real, if one person, have you ever had an honest answer to that question?
I haven't had like a full essay. No, that's true. But that's why I have you on. And by the way, very few words sound like what they are than ointment, Howie. You know what I'm saying? Like that, what that is. People don't have to say, what is that when you say, what's an ointment?
A lot of the oi words sound like what they are. Moist is but ointment is moist. So they're part of the same family? Is there a moist, wet family that is... I like ointment.
By the way, you should bring that up to Simon Cowell next time you see him and just say that.
Whether he's moist. The last time I saw Simon, I
Yes.
posted something on Instagram. We were actually at his house shooting something for the premiere next week, and he leaned into the shot. So it's me and Terry Crews and Sophia Vergara and Heidi Klum.
Yes.
And he leaned in, and then there's this conspiracy. This is why I don't know whether we're all fine, but there's a conspiracy that his head was a cutout and photoshopped in afterwards. I don't know that that's even a big conspiracy, but everything now is a conspiracy, whether the picture's real, whether COVID is real, whether we should wear a mask, or whether ointment actually exists.
So you can confirm, though, Howie Mandel, that whatever kerfuffle was caused by your selfie is much ado about nothing. That really was Simon Cowell's big head.
Absolutely.
Pop in there.
You know what? I'm much ado about nothing. That's going to be on my headstone when I'm God. Much ado about nothing.
Howie Mandel here on The Rich Eisen Show. Hey, Howie, I recently had Bob Saget on my podcast that I do outside of this show.
Right.
He told me that at the Comedy Store that you getting your gig on St. Elsewhere sent like a shot through everybody there that you could get out, that you're still doing the comedy game, but you could be an actor, and how that would kind of got everyone going.
I didn't know that I was such a beam of
groundbreaking back in the early 80s.
That groundbreaking early 80 move, which wasn't a move, and my entire career is not a move, it's an accident. That was like, I don't know if I think I've told this story many times, but I was, doing okay in stand-up comedy, and stand-up comedy is my first and foremost love out of everything that I do. In fact, the worst part of the pandemic for me is my inability to be in front of a live audience. This is the longest, and I still have not. Up until after 45 years of stand-up, the longest I was not being on stage was 2.5 weeks, and now it's been like almost a year and 3 months, and I'm going nuts. But that being said, I had done a young comedian special. I was selling hard tickets. I was doing well,
right.
And the normal trajectory for anybody in my position was to then get their own sitcom. So they had, and that was a time when, Mork and Mindy had just launched, and for Robin, and Billy Crystal was on Soap. Right. And every comic was moving into their sitcom. So my agent set up a general meeting at MTM, the Mary Tyler Moore company, and who were prolific in sitcoms. They had the Mary Tyler Moore Show and Lou Grant and Newhart, and every show that was like blowing up was coming out of MTM. And I went and met with this lovely lady, Molly LaPata, And she said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I'd love to do a sitcom." And she said, "Can you act?" And I said, "I don't know." And she said, "Read this." And she handed me this side of, a little piece of a script to read. And it was all this medical terminology. So I read it. And she goes, "That's very good. Will you come down the hall with me and read this for somebody else?" And I go, "Oh, okay." And I go down the hall and I walk into this room. I now know that it meant nothing to me, but it was Bruce Paltrow, Gwyneth's dad,
yes,
who was the executive producer, Mark Tinker, Grant's son, and this guy named Falsey and Brand, these two guys who created it. And anyway, and I go down there and I start reading the same. She says, "You got to hear this." So I start reading it again. Halfway through, they go, "Well, thank you." And I left. And my wife said to me, "How did it go?" And I go, "I don't think I got the sitcom, but I don't feel bad about it because I read a little piece of it, and it's not funny. I don't even understand what I was reading." Needless to say, about an hour later, I get a call from my agent. They said they want you to go down and meet Brandon Tartikoff.
Oh, my God.
And Brandon Tartikoff, for those that don't know, was the king of television. I mean, he brought NBC back from the dead and created, the Cheers and all these, and Hill Street Blues.
Oh, yes.
And he created television. Look him up. Google him when I'm off of this. But anyway, I go down to meet with Brandon Tartikoff. I had just gotten home. I get back in the car. I go down to Burbank. And I go into Brandon's office, and in Brandon's office there is Bruce Paltrow and Mark Tinker, and they said, "Read what you read." And again, this sitcom that I'm reading with all this medical terminology, I start reading it. I get halfway through. They go, "Thanks. Wait outside." I was so kerfuffled. You use that word?
Yes.
When they said wait outside, I said it's raining. It was raining, and they said no, just outside the office.
That's right.
So I stand outside the office, and they come out and they said, "We'll see you Monday." This was a Friday. We'll see you Monday. And I had no idea what I had read. I had no idea what that meant. And they were bringing me back to read for some more people on Monday. I'm driving home. I get home. That we didn't have car phones at the time or cell phones. And I get home, and my phone is ringing. And my wife says, "Your agent's been calling. Call your agent." And he called me. He said, "Congratulations, you're starting Monday." I go, "On what?" Now, here's what people don't realize. They had been shooting this show for about 6 days. They were looking at the dailies and all the film. They weren't happy with what they were seeing, and they decided to replace 3 characters, one of them being my character. And I replaced an actor who went on to get nominated or maybe even won an Academy Award. Do you know who David Paymer is?
Of course.
He was the original Fiscus. And then he went on to do Mr. Saturday Night with Billy Crystal. But so then I started on that Monday, and I didn't know I was an actor. So you're talking about, Bob Saget saying it shot a little bullet through the room, and we can act, and comics could act. I didn't know I could act. I remember the first day walking up to Bruce and going, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I don't know if you've made a mistake. I don't know anything about this industry, this part of the industry. Do you recommend a coach, an acting school, something? He goes, "You have just been enrolled in the best acting school you can ever wish to be in."
Well, and because you take a look at the cast photograph, Denzel Washington is on the show, William Daniels, Ed Begley Jr.,
Norman Lloyd, who just passed
away.
Last week.
Yeah, at age 106, he was in a Hitchcock movies.
He worked with and I knew I'm a big Hitchcock fan. So he was the bad guy in Spellbound.
Yeah,
and he was he worked with Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton. I used to sit like a 5-year-old at his feet, and he'd regale me with old Hollywood stories. And I would ask him questions. Bill Daniels, who went on to be Mr. Feeney from Boy Meets World, and he was on St. Elsewhere. But I loved him. One of my favorite movies was The Graduate. When he was saying plastic. I don't know if anybody else.
No. He was the dad.
So
absolutely.
Remember, he was wearing Dustin Hoffman was wearing the scuba diving mask, walking down the hall, and Bill Daniels was going plastics. That's the word. Don't remember.
Unbelievable, and that's how you wind up on St. Elsewhere. So walk me through before we move to here and now. Howie Mandel here on the Rich Eisen Show. I could literally talk about this for all day. But so you got a good Robin Williams story when you were working with him, or you're on the same I guess, night card with him, whatever you want to call it?
Robin was brilliant. Robin could just blow away the room, and he even showed up in Toronto. You know, I started up from Toronto, Canada, and I started this whole thing on a dare. Somebody dared me to get on stage. I wasn't a dancer. This is in the mid '70s, mid to late '70s, when disco was still happening.
Sure.
You know, and then I think that the next iteration of people going out was stand-up. There was this comedy boom. So we heard about this young guy from the San Francisco, the Bay Area, and he was just blowing up all at once. So he would come to the Yuck Yucks or wherever he was. I saw him at the Comedy Store and worked with him many times and did, comic relief. But just the unabashed brilliance of just whatever comes into mind with no pre-thought or editing. It was just this brilliance, streaming out of him. For me, the big thing was when I went to the Comedy Store and finally ended up at the Comedy Store was I was watching Richard Pryor every single night get on stage and hash out what eventually became Live on the Sunset Strip, which is one of the most seminal pieces of comedy concerts there is. I think that's probably the impetus for people like Eddie Murphy and Chappelle, and me. I don't think. But he was the first guy that I was aware that went on stage, talked about real things that are probably pretty dark, and made an audience who comes from, I would imagine, a very different world, and made them laugh. He was still bandaged on stage. He had just got out of the hospital after that horrible freebasing accident, where I don't.
No, it nearly killed him.
Nearly killed him. He was running down the street. He was the first guy to do that joke. He did it on stage. He got up on stage with the bandages, and people, you probably have a younger audience than this, but they probably wouldn't remember this joke. But you used to light a match and then move the match along in front of you. You go, "What is this?" "Oh, it's Richard Pryor running down the street." He did that. He did that on stage with the bandages still on.
Yeah, Saget said the first MC that when he was there at the Comedy Store for his first night was Letterman. Letterman was MC.
Letterman was my MC too. Yes.
Wow.
Letterman was, and he was, he had just driven out. He was just a weatherman before that, and then I became, I opened for him a little bit for Letterman. It's really interesting, and they had a little improv group. In the improv group was Andy Garcia.
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
And even you don't know until you live as long as I have. I'm an old guy now. But, on our show, even on St. Elsewhere, Tim Robbins, his very first acting gig out of acting school on network TV, he did a guest spot. Kathy Bates did guest, like people that went on to win Academy Awards and create other shows. Denzel, right before he did St. Elsewhere, he has a movie. I'm sure he wouldn't want me talking about it, but I will. Carbon Copy.
I saw it with George Siegel, right?
Yes.
I saw it. I don't know why I remember this stuff, but yes, I remember that.
Right. So I'm sure that's not his proudest moment. He's fine in it, but he wouldn't have been, with movies like that only, he would not become the Denzel Washington that you know today.
Hey.
But, while he was doing the show, he got the play, A Soldier Story, and started doing that. And then
Look out.
And then in the summers, we all did films. A lot of them didn't come out. I stopped doing movies. I didn't want to do movies. Mm-hmm. I hated movies. I don't hate movies. I go to movies and love movies, watching movies. I don't like the process of being in a movie. I don't enjoy it at all. It's like, you do you remember 5 lines. I didn't feel like it was creative from my point of view. Somebody's telling me what to say, where to stand on a mark. I go do 5 lines. They go, cut, that's great. And I go back to my trailer for 6 hours while they relight to get the same line from a different angle. And then I was in the hands of somebody else to edit it and put it together. So I stopped doing movies in like the 80s, and I just want a tour. I just want a live audience. I just want 3 people in front of me. That's all I need.
Well, you got me, and you got 3 others sitting here listening on every word you're saying right here, Howie Mandel, on the Rich Eisen Show. Before I let you go, America's Got Talent returns on Tuesday, 8 Eastern on NBC. Tuesday, June the 1st. You've been a judge since season 5. My word, this is season 16. What?
This is 16. Season 16. This is my
Unbelievable.
12th year
Wow.
on it. It's bigger and better and more exciting than ever. And I think that there was this pent-up, energy that people had the last year. So they're so happy just to be out, and they understand it puts life in the world in a whole new perspective, and these people just explode onto the stage. This has been the hardest year through the auditions to just narrow it down, and letting, everyone is so good and so funny and so exciting and so dangerous. It's great. And then also from the pandemic, I started doing a podcast with my daughter because I didn't get to see my kids or my grandkids at all, so we'd spend hours on the phone making prank calls, calling friends, applying for jobs that I have no reason to apply for. And I was recording it all, and then my wife said, "Who's this for?" And I go, "No one. I'm just having fun." And she said, "Put it out." And it's called Howie Mandel Does Stuff, wherever podcasts are available.
Airing every Tuesday. That's when you get new episodes. Howie Mandel Does Stuff. America's Got Talent. Season 16 premieres Tuesday, June 1st at 8 Eastern on NBC. I literally could talk to you for an hour, hours.
So can I. And I'll be honest with you. I'm fine.
Well,
Thanks for asking.
When do you take your mask off? When does that happen for you?
I've had, at the beginning of this thing, there was a shortage of PPE.
Yes.
I felt responsible for that because I have been collecting it for the last 65 years. I've had a surgical mask. They took a picture of me that ended up in People magazine in a hazmat suit coming to work. That's just, I didn't do that for the joke. That's me. Welcome to me, people.
Well, I mean, your memoir's called "Here's the Deal, Don't Touch Me."
And that's the deal.
That's it.
There you go.
Open the case, and it's filled with PPE. I got it.
Well, I'm a huge fan of yours. Thank you for having me on.
Right back at you. Thank you.
Stay healthy and happy.
Let's do it again. That's Howie Mandel, at Howie Mandel on both Twitter and Instagram, right here on The Rich Eisen Show. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.